Hello and welcome to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. You have found the place where we talk about estate planning, elder law, real estate, and business law. Give us a call. Why don't you? 774-2424. That's 616-774-2424. If you have a question, a comment, or concern about wills, trusts, or probate. If you're wondering, how do we beat the high cost of long-term care? You might be worried about it. I don't know. You probably should be. If you're wondering about business or real estate, now's the time to call us, 616-774-2424. One of the things, obviously we do a lot of estate planning, and I was just talking to one of the financial advisors who works with our clients, families who've done a plan with us. And well, let me tell you, you can't talk to an attorney for more than 5 minutes without them complaining that clients don't get it, right? You explain and you explain and you explain, and they walk away and they don't take anything away from it. So what we've done, because most estate planning fails, I mean, the vast majority of estate planning fails, and everybody knows this, okay? This is not a secret to anybody, perhaps except the client. Everybody else gets that your estate plan is going to fail. We expect that it's going to fail. We know it's going to fail. You're going to wind up going through probate anyway, even though you did the trust. Like, that's, according to one survey, it's 96% of the time. And I don't know, maybe it's 97%, maybe it's 93%. But nobody in the business, no banker, no insurance agent, no accountant or attorney or anyone else who works with this thinks it's more, at least no one that's stuck to me. And if you think it's more than, say, 85%, and if you're being honest, it's around 90-95%, call me, tell me, hey, all my clients have their trusts. All, if they have a trust, it's going to work. And I know it's going to work because all the assets have been retitled to the trust. This doesn't happen, okay? You got the trust. You haven't seen the attorney since. You didn't read what was in it, et cetera, et cetera. And when you talk to folks, and I was, like I say, this conversation was not with an attorney. It was just last week, with a financial advisor. And I know he's a good guy, and I know he works hard and everything else. But 5 minutes later, talking about how, clients don't follow through and da-da-da-da-da. Okay. And blaming the client. You see, that's the move. What they do is they don't take responsibility. They say it's your fault that your trust isn't funded. And legally, technically, yeah, it's your fault. You know why? Because there's a memo in that big book of documents that you got, in that binder of yours. There's a document in there that says it's your fault. See, this is how your kids wind up in probate, even though you did the trust, even though you did everything that, you didn't actually do everything that needed to get done, but you did everything you thought you needed to do. Okay. But there was no follow through. And as a consequence, your trust fails. And this is what happens, like, with practically not every trust. And and this has just been my experience. I'm not making invidious comparisons here, right? But my experience is engineers tend to fund the trusts, but doctors don't, and lawyers don't. CPAs, they don't fund their trusts either. Line working people, regular folks, nobody funds it except engineers. I used to say executive secretaries, but now I've come across several cases where people who were executive secretaries didn't fund the trust. So sorry about that, executive secretaries. I used to believe that you funded your trust. You don't. Engineers. It's down to that. Mechanical, chemical, electrical engineers. Yeah, you're the guys who fund the trust. And men and women, not just men. It is mostly men, but it's, whatever. So unless you're some sort of engineer and you remember doing it, see, you can't not know whether or not you did it because it's a big deal. It's a lot of work. And once you've done it, it needs to be kept up. Okay. And here's the deal. Everybody blames you for not having it done. All right. So when you're gone on to your reward, when St. Peter welcomes you home, right, then your trust will fail and your kids will go through probate. And the attorney will point to the memo that's in that big poofy binder. You know, the poofy binder, we all use them. The big binder that you got with all your documents in it, that one. Well, it's in there. It's right on top, but sometimes it's in the back and sometimes it's in the middle. But generally speaking, again, 90+% of the time it'll be right on top. So when your kids go to the attorney and say, hey, how come we've got to go through probate? Or why are you telling us we got to go through probate? Mom and dad did this wonderful trust here. Then it's right on top so the attorney can point to it and say, oh, look, mom and dad didn't fund the trust. Wah, wah. Now you got to go through probate. That's what's going on. And that's what they're teaching new attorneys to do. I had two attorneys. You've heard me say this before, but I've had two attorneys. You know, we've got about, I don't know, 8 or 9 in the firm out of 50, 8 or 9 folks are attorneys. The rest are paralegal specialists doing specific things, but including funding the trust, as a matter of fact. But, you know, we had attorneys go through the course. And when the issue of how do you get folks to fund the trust came up, the answer from the, you know, partner at the multi-state law firm, big deal, expert, what have you, his answer was, that's what the pour over will is for. That's why you do the pour over will, because people don't fund the trust. Again, your fault. It's on you that you didn't fund the trust. And it's infuriating. And when people bring in their trust, you know, and one of the questions I always have, when people have an existing estate plan and they come in, I said, well, how long's it been since you've seen, you know, the person who put this thing together for you? You know, how often do you get information from them? How often do you review this thing? And you know what the most popular answer is? And again, 90+% of the time, 90+% of the time, the answer is when we signed the documents, right? Well, you didn't like that guy anyway, or gal, man or woman, I don't care. You didn't like, you know, you didn't like going through that process anyway. You know, it's like you had a filling. You know, when was the last time you saw the doctor about that filling? I don't know. When did it fall out? You know, if there's no emergency, you're not going to go do it. When it comes to dentistry, and it's the same way with estate planning. I get it. I understand. Okay. But what I want to get across is the problem in the problem that attorneys have is, in my view, is that they blame you. And financial advisor, this was a financial advisor I was talking to. He did the same thing. It was like within 5 minutes, shaking his head. Oh, you know, we tell them what to do and they just don't do it. Well, here's the thing. All right. If people come to you and they trust you and they give you money to get something done, okay, and then 96% of the time it fails, right? Maybe you're the one who's doing it wrong, right? Maybe you're the one. Maybe you shouldn't blame them. Maybe you should figure out how to get it done so it actually works. How's that for a phenomenal, unbelievable concept? Do you see? Think about your job. You know, if you're retired, think about what happened before you retired, right? If you failed 96% of the time, I don't care if you fail 50% of the time, right? And nobody thinks it's as low as 50. Nobody thinks it's that low, right? We know it's in the 80s, 90s, okay? Ridiculous to think it's anything less than that. But anyway, if you fail 50% of the time, would you still have a job, right? Or if you were running a business and 90% of the time, right, whatever it was you were selling to people didn't work. You're selling toilets and they don't flush, okay? You're selling meat. I don't know. You're a butcher and it's bad. It kills people or I don't know, whatever. You know, if you failed that much, right? Who's blaming the customer anymore? Nobody. But we get to blame the customer because you're dead now, and we're explaining it to your kids, and we have a piece of paper that explains how it was your fault. It was your fault, not my fault. I told you what to do. You're listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. We're going to figure out how to do it right. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm still David Carrier, your family's personal attorney, and I'm still inviting you to give us a call at 774-2424. That's area code 616-774-2424. We'll get your question, comment, or concern on the air. And I know you people listen on WKZO are like, oh, 616, that's a long way away. Hey, let's face it, long distance is a thing of the past. You can call us 616-774-2420. Can you even reverse the charges anymore? Is that even a thing? I don't know. You remember that back in the day when it was long distance? Remember long distance? And you have to reverse the charges. Anyway, just saying. If you have a question, comment, or concern about wills, trusts, probate, long-term care, real estate, or business law, we're open for business. I'm just talking today about the, kind of very fundamental. And it just came up because talking with a friend who's a financial advisor. They do have friends. And, he got into the blame game, blaming clients, blaming you for not knowing how things work. In fact, I just yesterday, Saturday, it was Saturday. I'm still working, right? I'm talking to somebody else and a financial advisor type. And they said the question was, what's the biggest problem with financial advising, financial planning, stuff like that? And, and this is a whole room full of financial advisor types. And the answer was stupidity. Right? So this is a gang of advisors, right? This is a whole training thing. And what's the biggest problem? And the answer, which, those guys are thinking, according to my buddy, this different fella. Anyway, he's like, well, we were all thinking market volatility or blah, blah, blah. And the answer was, no, it's stupidity. And he wasn't referring to his own stupidity, mind you. He was referring to yours, the people for whom he is working. That's the big problem. And there was general agreement. It was shock, at first, but general agreement. Yeah, that's a problem. Clients are stupid. And if you listen to attorneys very quickly, it's about 5 minutes. Swear to God. If you talk to an attorney and you're not a client, they're not going to tell you this. That's why you tune in here, right? To find out this is what we're saying behind your back, right? Now, mind you, I don't talk to attorneys very often. I really try to avoid it to the extent I possibly can. But, when you talk about the estate planning thing and you talk about why trusts fail and things like that, what you find very quickly, what attorneys go to is, the clients don't do what we want them to do. We told them to do this and they don't do it. 96% failure, according to one survey. I don't know, maybe a little bit less, but not much. Anyway, how do we avoid that? My point is, shouldn't be on the client to figure that one out, because and this is historical. I mean, this is not, it just happened last week. You can't blame this on COVID or computers or anything. This is the way it's always been. So what you have to do is come up with a process that this is my view of the world anyway. You have to come up with a process that acknowledges where people are. See? So if you're doing a job and you fail 90% of the time, heck, 20% of the time, if you failed, you'd be wondering, do I have the right process here? Am I doing this right? Well, lawyers don't ask themselves that question for two reasons. Number one, we can blame you because we gave you the piece of paper that says you're supposed to do this, knowing full well that there's like 4%, zero unless you're an engineer, right? Very little chance that you're actually going to read that paper and do that thing. We know you're not going to do it. So that's one thing. But it's not our fault anymore, you see. There's no consequence. There's no negative consequence, right, to not doing it. It's easy to get away with it because we put a piece of paper, and sometimes it's 2 or 3 pages long, but we put a piece of paper in those documents you got that say you're supposed to do these things, which incidentally, I know you're not going to do, or your trust will fail. Okay. And they teach attorneys to do this. Like I said, I haven't seen it myself personally, but I had 2 attorneys went through the course. They got the certificate to hang on the wall, estate planning attorney certificate, right? And what they taught them in that course was don't bother funding the trust. Don't bother doing the follow through. Run them through probate. You got a will for that. Run them through probate. That's what they're training. I mean, it just blows your mind, doesn't it? Because people did the trust to avoid probate. And they're training the attorneys to go through probate. So number one, it's not my fault. Not my fault, your fault. You didn't fund the trust. You didn't put your stuff in the trust. You didn't follow through. Okay? It's like trying to make a cake, right? And you throw all the ingredients in a mixing bowl. So where's my cake? Well, you're supposed to get me a cake. Yeah, well, I gave you eggs and, milk and all the rest of the stuff, and I stuck it in a mixing bowl for you. And I gave you the instructions on what you're supposed to do next. And I gave you a thing that said you're supposed to be the one to bake it. Well, I needed a wedding cake for whatever, and now I don't have one. Yeah, well, not my fault. See, that's what's going on. You got the ingredients, but there's an awful lot of work that still has to be done, which they have no intention of doing, and they're counting on you not doing it. And it's not their fault. So that's number one, not my fault. What was that? Chico and the Man, right? Not my job, right? Not my fault. The second thing is, it's very profitable. It's very lucrative. The money is there in probate. See, if you go through probate, and who knows how much it costs, the ARP said 4 to 10% of the estate. I don't think that's outlandish. I don't know exactly what it is. Some states they have percentages. Michigan does not, but some states have percentages where the attorney gets a certain percent of your estate, and it's within that 4 to 10% of the estate that the attorney gets for doing the probate work. I don't know. Okay, but it's expensive. So not only is it not the attorney's fault when your trust fails, they actually make more money when the trust fails, because now instead of avoiding probate, you're going through probate. And instead of avoiding all the family mishigas, all the family hoopla, all the family squabbling and all the rest of it, which your trust would have done if you'd gone through probate, instead of avoiding that, now you're going through it. Well, guess who gets paid by the hour for sorting out chaos? Let's think about that for a moment, shall we? All right. So now you're going through probate, which you wanted to avoid. You haven't avoided the family strife, and none of it is the attorney's fault who set up your plan. And in fact, he stands to make quite a bit more money, he or she stands to make quite a bit more money by running all your stuff through probate, right? And you can say to and listen, when you ask folks about that, when folks come in and they want to talk or review or something like that, and say, you ask about the trust. Well, 96% of them think the trust is funded. So if you're like, oh yeah, very interesting, David. Yeah, I suppose that happens to some people, but my trust is funded. Really? Bring it on down. Come on. Come on down. Bring your trust and let's go through it. I bet you it isn't. I'll buy you lunch. How about that? You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. What's the answer? Yeah, we'll get to that. You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier. As always, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. And now's the time to give us a call at 774-2424. That's area code 616-774-2424. Yes, we're live. It's true. Every Sunday mornings from 7 to 9. You can just call us up. Of course, if it's not Sunday morning from 7 to 9, Well, then this is a recording, so don't bother calling in. How about that? But if it is, go ahead, give us a shout. If you're thinking, oh, yeah, he's talking about them trusts, and mine is all funded, and mine is super duper, and I don't have to worry about that, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you might be right. You're probably not, but you might be right. Okay. The problem with trust-based estate planning is this. If there's no follow through, right? If when you set up the trust, if you didn't follow through on it, and understand that most people don't, most folks don't, because the attorney is not going to do it for you, hardly at all. And if they did, you'd know it. Okay. If you just signed your documents and got the hell out of there because, oh, thank goodness that's done, check that box off, right? I'm finished with this, which is frankly what most people do. And I mean, the vast majority of folks, right? Because you got hounded into doing a trust. You didn't want to do it. You know, it's like, what's that song? I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to do it. But they were talking about love in that case. In this case, we're talking about estate planning, you know. You made me do a trust. You know, you did. You know, you did. Anyway. Oh, isn't it pathetic how I amuse myself? Anyway, the point being, you didn't want to do the trust anyway. You were happy when you got the heck out of there. Okay. You put it on the shelf. You said, I paid X amount of dollars for that thing. I checked the box. I did what I was supposed to do. I'm a good person. Yes, you are a good person. And you paid the money and, you know, you did what you were told to do. The problem is there's a scorpion between the pages of that book, between the covers of that binder that you got. Right? There's a nest of vipers, you know, a deadly scorpion, whatever. The deadly scorpion is because there was no follow through, right? Because you didn't do the things that were necessary to be done for the trust is going to fail. And why do lawyers put up with that? How do they get away with the piracy of giving you a binder that's a seething mass of scorpions and snakes, vipers? How do we get away with it? Well, the answer is we give you a memo that said it's your fault. If you don't do these things, right? It ain't my fault. You take care of the vipers, take care of the scorpions, take care of the problems that come up with a lack of follow through. Okay. We warned you. That's the answer. Now, that's one part of it. So you say, well, jeepers, I thought lawyers were the nicest people in the world, right? I thought lawyers were aren't they the good guys, right? Well, one thing is, it's not my fault. But the second thing is, when a trust doesn't work, what do you have now? The answer is probate. Okay. And I'm just saying, most attorneys are human beings. All the ones I've met anyway. I don't want to vouch for the ones I haven't met, but the ones I've met, they're all human beings. Okay. And lead us not into temptation, right? And when you get the probate work, that's a lucrative area of practice. See? So what is the incentive on the attorney who's doing the trust? What's the incentive to actually do the follow through? Okay. Because number one, it's not my fault anyway. Number two, right, I make more money. There's two other factors that are going on there as well. And the third factor. So number one, it's not my fault. I can't get dinged for not following through, right? Because I gave you the memo. Number two, I actually make more money if you don't follow through, because now I get to probate your estate, which I know you thought you were avoiding probate with the trust, but that's not what's really happening in the real world. The third is, this is what everybody's doing. Okay. All the lawyers, everybody knows, and the bankers know it. I've said this before. Bankers, financial advisors, insurance people, the people at the funeral home, everybody knows that your trust isn't going to work. Now, you may not realize it, but, well, you're always the last to know anyway, right? And in this case, you only found out after you're dead, so what's the big deal? Well, Well, you didn't want your kids to go through probate. You wanted to make sure that that was taken care of. And so that's why you did this estate planning. All right. So number one, not my fault. Number two, I make more money if you don't do it correctly. Number three, right? Everybody else is doing it. Here's the fourth thing, the fourth factor. Right? Clients don't like to do it. See, you come with us. I'm just saying, whenever we do an estate plan, trust-based estate plan, all right, funding is part of the deal. Our trusts don't fail. And the reason the trusts don't fail is because we make you go through the follow-through. Go through the follow-through? I don't know. We make you do the follow-through. In fact, we've got a whole team of people. We got a separate location down the parking lot from us, from the main building. All they do all day is make sure that your stuff is in the trust. And guess what? No one else is doing that. Because why? Well, for the first two reasons I told you about. All right. Number one, it's not my fault. Number two, I make more money. Number three, everybody's doing it. Everybody's doing it, right? Everybody is leaving the trust funding to you, which everybody knows you're not going to do, right? But the fourth thing is, it's not fun. It's actual work. We figure 2 to 6 months to get the trust funding done, right? And people hate it. You know, I'm sympathetic to the idea, you know, when people start saying, you know, by people, I mean attorneys, you know, oh, clients don't want to do it. Yeah, I know. But you made a promise, didn't you? Oh, this is going to avoid probate. No, it ain't. Well, it could if you followed through. And so, but that's the fourth thing there, you know, because you won't like it. It's the least popular part of our process. You know, I got folks coming back to me saying, oh, you know, you guys aren't very good. You guys are terrible. Okay. How come we're terrible? Well, my friends, you know, had a trust done, and it was less expensive than you. You charged more than they did, which we probably did, actually. And I'm like, okay, guilty as charged. And those guys are so good, right? My friends only had to sign once. And now I've been back here 3 times, you know, with all this stuff. Nobody else has to go through that. I've talked to all my friends. They didn't have to do all this. Why do I have to do all this work? Well, okay. You know, what are you going to do? Keep a smile on your face. What you're going to do, you know, and you explain and you say, look, yeah, but your friend's trust is going to fail because they're not doing the work that's getting done here. Okay. I don't know if I'm asking sympathy for the devil being myself, but, you know, cut me some slack. Okay. It's true. It's more work. If you work with us, right, it's going to be more work. It is. But at least it'll work. Am I saying work too many times? You know what I'm saying? I mean, like, what is it you do where you get a good result, and it's easy? And some things are like that, right? Pancakes aren't too hard to make. On the other hand, you can make lousy pancakes, right? If you don't put the buttermilk in, and, you know, you can make pancakes, but pancakes are fairly easy to make. But you know the difference between one of those frozen microwave pancakes and the pancake you make yourself. There's a difference, right? If you put in the work and you don't get the, just add water. If you actually get the Bisquick and throw some buttermilk in there and some eggs, and, you know, and then you have the griddle, and you maintain the temperature so you don't burn it, and it doesn't take too long. You know what I mean? There's ways of doing practically anything that's easier, and all the rest. It's easier, faster, what have you, and the result is crap. And that's what's going on with most estate plan. I'm just saying it. You know, I've said it before, I'll say it again. Okay? To get it done correctly, it's effort. You got to put the effort in. Now, is it worth it? That's what I'm going to cover in the next segment. Is it worth doing? What is it that most estate planning ignores We'll talk about that next. You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm still David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. And did I say that most of estate planning is crap? Yes, I did. It's undeniable. Just look at it. There it is. Now, even if it's done correctly, now here's my other point, right? It's not done correctly most of the time. I mean, trust-based estate planning, not done correctly. I don't care if you got it from a big glass box or mom and pop or whoever, okay? You scratch the surface of an estate planning attorney, you find somebody who's complaining about the clients for not doing the follow-through that leads to failure of the estate plan. And then the instinctive reaction is to blame you. And so I think a lot of this stuff it's not even on the things I'm talking about here. If you were to put a lawyer on a lie detector test, right? I think they might actually be sincere about not recognizing the problem. Okay. And they would blame you because it is your fault, right? For not following through, because they got the piece of paper that says it's your fault and you didn't listen to me and yeah, all that kind of stuff. And which is just like total nonsense to me. I mean, who's the expert here? I mean, who's done this before? You haven't. This is your one time. This is your one chance to get it right. And so you go to somebody with degrees on the wall and supposed expertise, right? And you're kind of hoping that it's not going to blow up on you. And then it blows up on you. But the beauty part of that, as I said, the beauty part of it blowing up on you is it's not my fault. And you'll never hold me to account because you're gone. It's your kids. It's your kids who are going to pay the price, right? Because they don't find out about it till later on. So, but here's the other thing. And this is what really, absolutely curdles. This is what curdles my milk, so to speak. Burns my pancake. The fundamental notion of estate planning, the way it's done, is flat wrong. It's just wrong. See, the idea is when I die and I have a pile of stuff, right? Maybe a big pile, maybe a small pile, maybe a medium-sized pile, whatever. I got a pile of stuff. There's leftovers. I didn't consume it all. Now, understand, there are people, quite a few, who have no such pile of stuff, right? Because they did consume it all. They've been living on a credit card, hoping for whether it's a student loan bailout or bailout of some other sort, whatever. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, there are people like that, but they don't get up Sunday morning and listen to me. So we're safe talking. So we're safe talking about them, right? They're not listening to the show anyway. So I'm talking about you, the people who actually saved money, the people who actually paid things off. People went to work and got the job and you don't make excuses and on and on and on. Okay. You're the ones I'm talking to. When you die, there'll be leftovers. The question is, where do the leftovers go? How do they get there? Et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that seems to be the dominant theme in estate planning. And to my way of thinking, it's completely wrong. It's off base. It's not correct. Because you got to get there. I mean, what did Timothy say, right? I've run the race, finished the course. My life's being poured out like a libation. All that kind of stuff, right? I've run the good race. I fought the good fight. Okay. Well, you're still fighting. You're still running. You're not there yet. And back in the day, and I don't mean that long ago, I mean within the course of my career, back in the day, folks died a lot quicker. Older folks died quicker. All right. We didn't have all the gerontology. We didn't have all the modern miracles of modern medicine that we have now that enable folks, to live longer. The problem is the older you get, the greater the incidence of incapacity. Right. In other words, right, you're still around, lights are on, but nobody's home or not home all the time or what have you. Whether it's dementia, whatever the various flavors of dementia, physical incapacity, should we not talk about that stuff? Should we just ignore it? Should we ignore the fact that 70% at age 65, you have a 70% chance of needing 3 years of skilled care on average? That's at 65. All right. The older you get, the higher the percentage. And don't believe me. Go to longtermcare.gov. That's an official federal government website. All right. It's easy to remember. Longtermcare.gov. Right. And they'll tell you how long you're going to be in there, what it costs, all the rest. I'm not asking you to believe me. All right. But that's where I'm getting my numbers from. And you say, oh, yeah, well, it's the government. Okay, fine. It's the government. What incentive do they have to get it wrong? Who the hell knows? But anyway, point being, right? The problem is not if you die. The problem is if you live. Okay. The problem is you wipe out your life savings, paying for things you already paid for. Do you see? All right. You get Social Security, tax dollars at work. You get Medicare, tax dollars at work. When it comes time for long-term care, oh, no. When you needed your bypass or hip replacement or whatever, okay, did they say, oh, I'm sorry, you have too much money in your checking account. Come back and see us when you've got under $2,000. Oh, I'm sorry, you've got a cottage. You don't qualify. Oh, I'm sorry, 2 cars? Oh, no, we only let you have 1. All right. Oh, and by the way, give us 5 years of your financial records before we decide whether or not we're going to let you have your bypass. They don't do that. They do when it comes to long-term care. Why? Because they can. That's why. They can get away with it. All right. What if we didn't let them get away with it? Do you think that's a little bit more important, right, than going through this, how do I get it to the kids? Well, yeah, I think so. All right. How do we make sure that your money works for you? Well, that's what this approach is all about. Okay. And I'll get into that in the next segment, unless you give me a call at 616-774-2424. Get your question on the air, right? Figure it out for you. But, if you've got a trust, if you're wondering, if you have a trust and you say, oh, that guy said my attorney is full of crap. Oh, they said my estate plan is no good. Meh. All right. Well, call me up. All right. I'm nicer in person. And, we can go over it if you'd like. More than happy to do that. We do that in person all the time. Do trust reviews. We don't charge for them. Doesn't cost you anything to come on in, have a cookie and a cup of coffee, and we'll make fun of your estate plan for you. How about that? Is that appealing? No, probably not. Probably not appealing, but at least you'll know. Isn't it good to know? I kind of think so. You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Hello and welcome to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. And now's the time for you to give us a call at 616-774-2424. That's 616-774-2424. You can always go to the website, of course, davidcarrierlaw.com. Leave us a message there or use that newfangled electronic mail. Sometimes people call it email. David at davidcarrierlaw.com. And at David at davidcarrierlaw.com, well, you can send us whatever you like. We do like positive feedback, although we hardly get any of that. It's always, nasty grams and poison pen, and makes me sad. But there you go. Nah, we get a little bit of that, but not much. Anyway, give us a call. Get a question, comment, or concern. Just send it. We'll get it. We'll get it on the air this week. Just to recap a little bit. I had a couple conversations last week with attorneys, financial advisors, and it just annoys me so much when I hear professionals blaming the people they're supposed to be helping for the fact that the remedies don't work. So when people do trust-based estate planning, and a lot of people have done that, millions and millions of people have done trust-based estate planning, and it's, I don't want to say worthless, because it's not worthless. It's better to do something than nothing. It's always better to do something, better light one candle than curse the darkness. I honestly believe in that. idea. So it's better to have done something than to have done nothing. But why do people do trust-based estate planning? And the answer is because it avoids probate. Now, avoiding probate in and of itself, that's not what it's about. It's not about avoiding probate. It's about making sure that your stuff goes where it's supposed to go. Okay. And that if you become disabled in lifetime, then your family gets to decide what happens to you instead of the government. All right. That's what estate planning is supposed to be, or generally thought to be, all about. The fact is that almost all estate plans fail. Most trust-based estate plans do not avoid probate. And the reason they do not avoid probate is because instead of following through after the documents are signed, there's a lot of follow through. Okay. It's not a matter of just taking the thing and putting it on the shelf or safe deposit box or what have you. All right. There's what we call funding the trust. All right. Funding the trust means putting the stuff in the trust so it's protected against probate. Not protected against long-term care. It's not protected against creditors. There's other stuff that will do that, but most of the time, folks are focused on avoiding probate. That's what they want to do. And to do that, you have to follow through. You can't just, throw it all in and say, oh, no, I'm done. It doesn't work like that. And the institutional problem that we've got is that lawyers are not held to account. Well, they do the paperwork so that it's your fault that there was no follow through. That's number one. Number two, lawyers make more money if you don't follow through, because now we got the probate. Yay, we love the probate. Number three, it's difficult to do it, right? And number four, people don't like doing it, right? No one else is doing it, so why should I? These are the reasons that your trust will fail almost all the time. This is why the trust fails. Okay. So, the whole, why do lawyers not do it differently? Why don't lawyers actually serve the client? Because there's safety in numbers. If I do what everybody else is doing, the fact that it fails is not my fault. It's not malpractice. See, this is the thing, right? It's not malpractice when your estate plan fails. That's not malpractice. The question is, were you doing the standard of care? Were you doing what everybody else was doing? Because if you're doing what everybody else is doing, well, that's all we can hold you to, right? That's what malpractice is. Okay. So that's the current state. Now, we have a whole team of people, and all they do all day is fund the trust. So once you've signed your documents with us, right? And I'm not saying there aren't other people out there. I just haven't met any of them. And in fact, hey, if you're funding your trusts, give us a call. I'm more than happy to say, hey, look, here's, Jane Doe over here who's actually doing it. All right. If you're actually doing it, I'm more than happy. I will recognize that person, to hell and back. Okay. If you're actually doing it, but I don't expect to get any calls because I don't think you're not doing it. All right. But even if you've got your trust funded, so let's say you set up your trust and the whole idea was I'm going to avoid probate. That's not the problem. All right. Avoiding probate is not the problem. We've been dealing with dead people on this planet for quite a while. Okay. I mean, even they find these people every once in a while now that there's global warming apparently, and they find these people in the permafrost, right? Or the bog people buried in the bogs in Ireland and stuff like that. And, and they have stuff, right? They have stuff with them, and they had stuff that they left behind for other people. So we've been dealing with human beings, number one, dying for a very long time. And we've also been dealing with people dying, owning stuff for a very long time. Okay. Now it can be a hassle. It's expensive. It's all those. So yeah. And planning for that's a good idea. Okay. But we got ways of dealing with that. Here's what's new, different. And the change has accelerated in the 32 years I've been in practice. You can see it. I mean, it's a pronounced change, and part of it's scientific, technological, whatever, and part of it is just population. But before we get there, I've got Jane from Whitehall on. Hello, Jane. Welcome to the David Carrier Show.
Good morning, David. How are you?
Working and having a ball.
Great. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. How can I help this morning?
I'd like to know what is a quit claim deed and when is a good time to use it.
Yeah. So a quit claim deed is a very useful tool. Okay. It's sort of the Swiss Army knife of transfer documents. Okay. Because it is so useful in so many different circumstances. Now, like a Swiss Army knife, you don't give it to a 3-year-old to play with because they'll cut their fingers off. Okay. That's a bad thing. And you do see it used wrong. But a quit claim deed simply says, I, Jane, right, might own some interest in this piece of land. Okay. I might. I'm not saying I do. I'm not promising you that I do, but I might, because my name somehow or other popped up in the chain of title, or, we camped on this land, or a million different scenarios, many different factual scenarios. But I, Jane, say I don't own the land, or to the extent that I might own the land, all right, or have an interest in the land, I'm giving it to John, or the buyer, the transferee. Okay. So maybe it's mine, maybe it isn't mine. I don't know, but I don't want it. You can have it. Give me $10 and it's yours, or give me $100,000 and it's yours. Okay. A quit claim deed says whatever interest I might have, and I'm not guaranteeing I have any interest at all, but whatever interest I might have, I'm going to give it to the person I recite on the deed. And so it's very useful for, like, you've got 10 beneficiary, 10 family members who've been using the cottage. And now you're trying to sort out, well, who actually gets the cottage. And you don't want to deal with, the grandchildren coming, or the nieces and nephews coming back later on. So you just go ahead and you get a quit claim deed from all the brothers and sisters saying that, Jane's the one who gets the cottage, and the rest of them quit claim it to you. Now, you don't have to prove that they actually have an interest in the cottage, but if they did, they don't anymore. And that's what a quit claim deed's about. Okay? All right. If that music means I got to get out, Jane. But if you want to hang on through the break, all right. If there's a specific question you have, you can ask after the break. Okay. But we're going to go to.
Fine,
all right.
Thank you.
You betcha. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. We've got Howard on the line. Hello, Howard. Welcome to the David Carrier Show.
Hey, I'm doing great. How you doing?
Working and working. Having a ball. I'm actually down in Florida. How about that?
Oh.
Meeting with some other lawyers about some, big plans.
Well,
So,
long ambition. I haven't been to Florida yet.
oh, you got to get down here. It's muggy as hell. There's bugs and stuff, but it's pretty. It's palm.
Oh, we got bugs too. I'm in Alamo.
Oh, okay. Well, how can I help?
Remember the Alamo. I've got a living trust.
Okay.
And there's 7 attorneys, and they'll all get together and assemble in the event that I kind of lose it. And
7? Why
yeah,
7?
It's a
Slopey.
Well,
What are they? Sleepy, Jokey, Doc, 7 Dwarfs there or what?
come 7, come 11.
I
They're up there
guess.
in Holland, and I'm doing great. I wake up in the morning. There's no rose in either hand. There's no lid, and my 19-year-old son loves me.
No
It's
pennies
always
on
a
your
good
eyes.
day. I'm a single man. My soulmate passed in April of 2015.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So that said, there's 2 billion women I haven't met yet. I've met some, and the other day she said, "I love you, now get out."
Yeah.
So I did.
All right. Well, let's
get
back to your trust question, because
I went down to Four Winds, and this lady walks out. She's smoking a American Spirit, and I pulled out my pouch and I'm packing my pipe, and she says, "Hello." I said, "I believe I'll join you."
well, that's
We
nice.
dated for like 14 hours. Yeah, it was really nice.
Hey, dude,
then
this ain't
went
Mr.
again.
Lonely Hearts here. Come on, what's the trust question?
The question is, am I really avoiding probate with this stuff? I mean, I paid for the thing.
Yeah, you're probably
And
not. I mean,
It's
what
a
I'm
living
what I'm
trust.
yeah, what I'm telling you is you're probably
the
not,
Chances are,
because
the
you didn't
chances
do the
are
follow through.
slim.
Well, yeah.
The follow through. How do I follow through?
Okay.
My short game in golf is really good.
Good. So here's the
I can drive the ball about 30 feet.
see, that's why it only lasted 14 hours, dude, because you have no follow through. But anyway, what I was saying was, with the trust, after you set it up, after you have the trust documents, you have to deed your house into the trust. You have to put your bank accounts into the trust, your investment accounts into the trust. If the trust is done correctly, you probably want to make the trust the beneficiary. Now, this is different. Beneficiary of IRAs, 401ks, tax qualified type investments. Okay. And what I see, what everybody knows, is that people don't do that. So you might have a checking account in there. Your house may have been deeded into the trust, but you've done a home equity line of credit, you've refinanced, the house has now come out of the trust. Most of the trust, a bare majority, I would say, of the trust that I see, that my attorneys see in our firm, they have nothing in them at all, because the only thing ever was in there was the house, and then you refinanced and took the house out, or you sold it and you bought something else. You didn't put the new thing in the name of the trust. That's what trust funding is. And that's what people aren't doing. And if your stuff is not in the trust doesn't work. How could it work? And then you have to go through probate. You do this will, right? And sometimes, and they talk about, do this will, and then I'll put the stuff in the trust for you. Well, that's what we call probate. They slide over it. But there's a memo in your trust binder that explains this and says that it's your fault, that you're the one who's supposed to put the stuff in the trust, which of course you didn't quite understand that. And that's why people don't have it. And it's a hassle, and it's a pain, which is why we have a number of, I don't know how many we got now, but it's why we have all those folks at what we call the Trust Funding Center, because all they do all day is help you put the stuff in the trust. And, and people poo-poo it. I mean, I've had, it's so easy. It's like our record right now is 5, where we sent the same documents to the insurance company, financial advisor, or to the, investment house or whatever, 5 times sent this. And I was just talking to one of my paralegals on Friday with a client, trying to explain what reality is, not what you wish it was, but what it actually is when it comes to this stuff. And I asked him, I said, well, what's the record there? What's your personal record for sending the same thing? And he said 5 times. And sadly, that's not unusual. I mean, 5 is a lot. 2 or 3 times, that's pretty much par for the course. But if you don't do it, now your trust is just a binder with a bunch of pages in it. And it's just a waste of time, waste of money. But not completely, because it's better to have done something than nothing. I would always never say total waste of time, but mostly. And it certainly doesn't do what you expect it to do. So you would know if you funded the trust, because it will take at least a couple of months, and it'll be a hassle, and you won't like it after you sign the documents. But if you got the documents and you got to go home, they made a copy and you got to go home, then no, you didn't fund the trust. The trust is not going to work.
When I served in the U.S. Air Force during Vietnam,
Yep.
I volunteered, and I have an honorable discharge. And Colonel Acme says, "Howard, you talk so much. Soldier, will you mind your mouth in the world?" "Sir, yes, sir." "Good soldier." Something like that. And he says, "You have situations, and you do not want to lose your situational awareness." "Sir, yes, sir." "Good soldier." Like that. That's what I do. I just retired from Conrail, the railroad, class 1.
So your railroad retirement plan,
E3. I made E3, first class, Howard. That's right. We'll take you first class.
Airman first class. That's right.
Airman first class, Howard. That's right.
Well, I think we lost Howard, our airman first class. Well, very common. People get the trust done. You do the good things. You lived your life. You saved your money. He's got the railroad retirement and all that. All great. All wonderful. Right. The question is, how do you hang on to it? While you're still alive? That's the question. We'll be getting back to some real estate questions when we get back. You're listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Now's the time to call 616-774-2424. We got Roger on the line. Hello, Roger. Welcome to the David Carrier Show. Hello.
I got a question about property rights.
Fire away, dude.
Okay. I have farmland, and a couple lots got sold across the road from me. So they ran a gas line through my land, which I know that utilities have the right to do that.
Why do they have the right to do that?
The road right away.
Oh, they put it on the right of way. Okay, all right.
Yes.
All right. Well, they don't automatically.
Okay.
You know what I mean? It's not just like, hey, Roger's got some land there. I think I'll run some pipe through it. They don't get to do that.
Right.
Now, if there's a utility right away or okay, but they don't. But that's why they get to do it, right?
They're in the right of way.
Be clear about it.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
I'm tracking.
I'm not disputing that, but then when they turn to go to the new home,
yeah,
the marker for the gas line is like 10, 15 feet off the ditch. So it's an obstacle in the field. I don't know if you're familiar with running equipment and stuff, but having an obstacle is a pain in the butt.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm wondering, should someone pay damages for that? Why shouldn't the final user, the new homeowner, pay for the use of the waste of my land?
Well, is the marker in the still in the right of way? There's a 66, generally speaking, you get a 66-foot right of way, on the section line or whatever it is.
Yep.
If it's within that, no. Because they can,
but I'm still, does the law say no one should be held any kind of financial responsibility for any of that?
Kind of, yeah.
Because they have the right to put it there, it doesn't mean someone couldn't be compensated for its disruption.
Yeah, it kind of does mean that, actually. See, the thing is with these, the thing with easements, they seem like they're not a big deal lots of times when people get into them, but it's not just like a drilling easement, or you give someone mineral rights or something, right? Let's say a lot of farmers do that. You give them mineral rights. Well, what you may not realize is they can traipse all over your place, and not just the drilling site, but take a big chunk out of the drilling site, supply roads, everything else when you sign off the mineral rights, because what you're signing off is not just the you can put a pipe here, but you can also do whatever you need to do to make full use of of the easement. And so that might mean guardrails, that might mean curbs, that might, they could put a curb 66 feet, one to the other 66 feet and take out the entire thing. They can do that. That's what the easement means. Okay. So if they wanted to put a 4-lane highway through, they could do it. And now you've got a marker that now you're trying to get your combine, your planter or your combine or sprayer or whatever the hell else it is, and the damn thing's sticking up there, and now you got to maneuver around it. Well, good luck for that, right? Now you don't have a nice even row, you got a curve, and it's a mess. I get it.
Right. So I don't understand why the final user couldn't be held responsible for that disruption.
Because whoever set it up in the first place, I'm not saying it was you, but if it was, you sold them the right to do that. That's what the right of way means. It means I get to use this thing.
Oh.
I bought and paid for it, or it was reserved, one or the other.
Nobody
Paid for it. When it got laid out, and they didn't used to have
the government just dictated that.
Yeah. Well, when it got laid out, that's what they required. Typically 33 feet on either side of the section line or the whatever. But that's how you view it. That they bought and paid for it. And that's what it means. But so it's really important, when somebody comes to you and say, hey, can I have a right of way? Hey, can I do a private road? Hey, can I do something? When you're giving an easement, it's not just the thing that they say, it's everything else, right? That makes it possible for them to make full use of whatever it was you gave them. So if you give them a right of way, then you also give them the right to put a gate on there. You also give them a right to put railings on there. You also give them a right to gravel the thing or pave it, or, there's an awful lot that goes along, and people, they want to be nice or whatever else, right? And they give people easement, and you think, well, it's only going to be a 2-track. Yeah, it's going to be a 2-track until it isn't, until they decide, well, I got ruts, I need to gravel it. And then they say, well, it'd be nice to pave it. And then you're like, what the hell happened here? Oh, and by the way, I need some guardrails because there's a ravine over there. And for you, it's like natural and, go hunt the deer and stuff. And now you got guardrails and a paved road. Well, you give someone the right of way, you're giving up all that. That's what's going on. You and putting a marker within the right of way sucks, but there it is. So
okay.
I wish I had good news for you, but What are you doing? Road
put something on his side of the road.
Well, that marker is required by law, right? I mean, you gotta mark out where the I assume it's a natural gas line or something like that. So you gotta do it. You can only see if you went and put a marker on his side of the road. Well, how is that your use of the right of way? You know what I mean? How is that conducive to your use? It's a spite marker is what, back in the day, people build fences to fence no reason other than to jam it to the other guy. They called a spite fence. And maybe you're talking about a spite marker. You know what I mean? Doesn't serve any useful purpose, but it's like, now I got you back. Well, law doesn't approve of that. Sorry. That's the way it is, dude. Yeah, I mean, I wish I had better news for you, but this is one thing when everybody wants everything to go smoothly, right? And lots of times people look at lawyers as, oh, you don't let me do what I want to do. You guys are glooming and dooming it. Well, yeah, I mean, that's part of the job, right? Is to say, hey, here are some things that can go wrong. But when you do it that way, I mean, that's when the lawyer does it that way, then you get to make the choice, right? Now, with the easement, you didn't get to make the choice, right? There was no, you're stuck with that. I mean, that's just the way it is, right? But lots of times people make decisions, right? And they want to do something, And the lawyer says, well, if you do that, here are the bad things that could happen. And then people are like, what do you know? And they go ahead and do it and then get bit in the ass. And then it's like, ooh, what can you do about it? I mean, that's not your situation because you got a right of way with a utility right of way as part of the, reserved right of way. There's nothing you can do about it. You're just stuck with it. But
Okay.
what can I tell you?
I'll
Sorry.
deal with it then.
Yeah.
Yep. Thanks.
Sometimes it's the best we can do. But thanks for calling, Roger. I do appreciate the call. But
All right. Thank you.
you betcha. See, that's what you really should be using. Don't sign anything without knowing exactly what's going on. And I'll tell you how we do it. It's like once, when we have folks who've done a estate plan with us, one of the things is it's always a free phone call. It's always a free visit, right? So what does that mean? What it means is that if your neighbor wants an easement or you get a piece of paper or, anything else, right? You don't want to pay a lawyer to review it. I understand that. This is why people sign stuff they should never sign. So what we say is, look, it's always a free phone call. It's always a free visit. You get some legal document that somebody wants you to sign, come on down. We don't charge for that. You know what I mean? Because if we did charge for it, then you wouldn't call us and then you get in, you get wrapped around the axle and that's bad. That's bad. We don't like that. Whereas if you called us and say, hey, what are the implications of this? And we'll tell you. And we do a lot of that. And sometimes people like what they hear and sometimes they don't like what they hear, but at least you see, I mean, Roger's thinking, what if I didn't have to put up with this? I'd get, X number more bushels of beans or corn or whatever else. It'd be easier for me to lay out my, my plowing and everything else. He's right, but he's stuck with it. How much worse would it be if he gave an easement to the guy and then this happened? That's what I'm saying. You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney. Welcome back to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier. No, I'm not a brick house. But anyway, and welcome back to the David Carrier Show. 616-774-2424. If you've got a burning question that won't wait till next week, we've got 10 minutes left. That's all we got, all the time we've got. But just to wrap up, most estate plans fail. Why do they fail? Most trust-based estate plans fail. They fail because there's no follow through. There's no making sure that everything's in the trust. That doesn't happen most of the time. And I mean, almost all the time doesn't happen. And so this is why in our process, it's not a see you back in 2 weeks and we'll sign documents process. It's a see you back in 2 weeks, sign documents. And now you've got 2 to 4 months, 2 to 6 months more work to do. And we'll do most of the work. Understand, we do most of the work, but you got to tell us what assets you have and there's signing off that needs to be done. Okay. In order to make sure that your trust truly works. Right. Why do most people not do this? Because it's easy to blame you when you're dead. And there's documents in your document. There's a memo in your binder there that blames you when you're dead. And the kids come in and say, hey, how come this trust doesn't avoid probate? And the attorney says, hey, because mom and dad didn't do what I told them to do. And look right there. There it is. Okay. And now your kids are wind up paying for probate, which was the whole point of doing this trust in the first place. Okay. And to my way of thinking, that's not even the problem, because when you're dead, people have been dying a long time. People have been dying with stuff for a long time. We figured out how to get the stuff to who should get it, more or less. Okay. That's not the problem. Now, I think it's a good idea to make sure that it goes where you want it to go and avoid probate in the process. Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I'm fully supportive of that. But that's not the problem. The problem is what happens when you need long-term care, because that's how we're going to make sure that there is nothing left for your kids or to take care of you. We've got Gail on the line. Hello, Gail. Welcome to the David Carrier Show.
Hi. Thanks for taking my call.
You betcha. How can I help?
My question. Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm just asking. What's your question?
Okay, my question is, which of my assets are protected? I'm 74. I'm still working, so I have a 403B, IRA, a Roth IRA, and a house.
Mm-hmm.
So if I were to get sued, do I get to keep any of those?
Yes, the retirement plan assets, which would be the IRA type assets, all right, tax qualified assets, retirement plan assets, those are protected for you, so they can't sue them away from you. So those are protected if you get sued. Now, if you need long-term care, now those assets are not protected. But the nursing, so let's say you go in a nursing home, you've got your house, you've got your IRA type assets, okay? And they say, hey, Gail, pay up. And you say, neener, you can't get my money, I'm not paying. Well, they can't kick you out because for failure to pay. Well, they can, there's a process for it, but it doesn't work very well. So, so you're not going to get kicked out. But does the nursing home just, cry in the corner because you've got retirement plan assets they can't get at? The answer is no. They're going to sue you anyway, and now they're going to take your house. Do you see? That's how that works. And then
Right. So
your kids say, "Oh, maybe we'll pay," whatever.
Right. So is my house protected from lawsuits or no?
No. Nope.
No. Okay.
No, it's just another asset. In bankruptcy.
Right. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I've heard sometimes that it was. So.
Well, in bankruptcy. See, what happens is you get sued. They say, we're taking your house. Sorry, Gail, we're getting your house. And then you say, oh, yeah, I'm going to declare bankruptcy. And I get to keep, I'm not a bankruptcy attorney. There's a certain amount of equity that you get to keep in the house. Yeah. Or if it's tenants by if you were married, right? Tenants by the entirety.
Yes.
And you're the one who owes the money. It's not a joint debt. Then they can't take the house until you sell it, and then they take your share of the proceeds from the house. So.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Well, I just wanted to tell you I really enjoy your newspaper articles that you put in the paper every week, and the good advice that you give us.
Well, hey, did you check out this week? I was a little subtle with this one. Let me know. Hey, let me know how you like this week's. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. I like them all. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Gail. You're listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney, and in all of the MLive papers and the Hearst papers, every week you get the Michigan Elder Law Reporter, which is around 2,000 words. But they say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So this week it's probably 100,000 word or 10,000 word column. If a picture is worth 1,000 words. But anyway, that's in your Sunday paper. And then on Tuesday, it's the same article. Sorry. And then, but if they don't publish on Tuesday, then they put it in on Thursday. So if you'd like to check that out, it's different stuff than we talk about. But one of the things, whenever I can, I try to, and it's easier in the column, because that's document. So I pull my information. You say, well, where do you get this stuff? Well, Library of Congress is one place. What do you call the Federal Reserve is another. The Bureau of Labor Statistics. I use, to the extent I possibly can, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. I mean, to the extent we possibly can, I go to the original source materials. Now, I may have my own opinion on what these things mean, which is fine. You get your own opinions, you just don't get your own facts. And so when it comes to inflation, when it comes to the recession, when it comes to the COVID being the elder plague, when it comes to these things, now sometimes I'll share my impressions, when I tell you I've talked to attorneys and this is what I hear them saying. Right. If I don't have a hard statistic, I'll tell you that. But most of the time, what I go back to, and I do this with the newspaper stuff, is we publish right from the government information. It's available. I mean, it's out there. You don't have to guess. You don't have to wonder about inflation. You don't have to guess. You don't have to wonder about who's dying from COVID. They report that stuff. You paid taxes for them to report that stuff. Now you can say, oh, it's the government. I don't trust the government. Well, okay, fair enough. Me neither. But that's where the numbers come from. Okay. So if we can agree on the numbers, we can disagree about what they mean, but at least we're dealing on a level playing field when it comes to the facts. I think that's extremely important that you know. I may have my opinions about stuff, but it's not pulled out of the air. It's based on the data. It's based on, most of the time, government reported information. It's not, we're not conspiracy theorists here. We're not going to, the dark web. No, we're using the numbers that the government tells us to rely on. Just so you know. You've been listening to the David Carrier Show. I'm David Carrier, your family's personal attorney.